What's up, nerdlings? Today I'm coming to you to go over some tips and tricks and learn how to micropipette. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the setup that you see here is going to be very similar to the one that's going to be on your desk. So you have this guy right here. This is called a micropipetter. So we're going to dial it to 15 microliters. And so if you look at a micropipetter, they're all going to have a volume on the cap. This one is going to be accurate, measuring volumes from 2 to 20 microliters. And so to go ahead and dial that 15 microliters, you can use this knob up top right here, or you can use the black knobs right here. They'll both get the job done. So for this one, your volume should read 150. Now, once you have that volume, you need to make sure that you know how to hold the micropipetter correctly. So you're going to open your hand. The lip of the micropipetter is going to go over your index finger. So you'll slowly grasp it, and then your thumb is going to go on the plunger. Now, when you have your thumb on the plunger, you're going to notice that there are two stops. So that first stop is going to allow you to withdraw the volume that you set on the micropipetter. Now, when you release your thumb, it will draw the volume in. If you're going to dispense the volume, say in a practice gel, you're going to slowly press the plunger down with your thumb. And if you want, you can press to the second stop. This is going to ensure that all of the fluid in the tip of the pipette is ejected into the gel. The one thing to always keep in mind is to remember to keep your thumb on the plunger until you've removed the tip of the pipette from the gel. Once you're done with that, you'll dispense your tip into a receptacle. So I'm going to demo this from start to finish in loading a gel. This is exactly what yours should look like for lab today. So instead of having buffering solution, what I've done is actually added water so you can practice. Now, this gel right here is pretty hardy. It's made out of rubber. The gels that you're going to encounter on the real lab are more of the consistency of Jell-O. So you do need to make sure that you're careful. Now, the first thing that I'm going to need to do is get a tip on my pipette. So I'm going to open my tip box. I'm going to give it a little double tap. So tap, tap. That ensures that the little pipette tip is on securely. Now I'm going to make sure that I close my lid. The reason that we want to keep the lid closed unless we're using it is to maintain a sterile environment, or as much of a sterile environment as possible, and not contaminate any of the tips. I'm going to go ahead and move that out of the way. Now, one common mistake that I see students making quite often is they see this little gap between the tip of the pipette and the pipette bin. This is totally normal, and it does not mean that the tip is not on. So please don't try to force that tip on. Now, the next portion of this is actually getting your liquid from your sampling vial. Now, yours might be green, they might be blue, they might be yellow. And so the first thing we're going to do is open this with your non-dominant hand. So I like to use my thumb, and I'm going to flip that top open. Now I'm going to take the tip of the pipette. I am going to depress the plunger. Now I'm going to place the tip of the pipette into my fluid. And let me show y'all a little bit what that looks like. Now I'm going to slowly release my thumb. And as you can see here, I have drawn up 15 microliters of fluid in the tip of my pipette. Now comes the hard part. You have to get this into one of the wells of the gel. So we always want to load the gels in the way that we read, at least the way that we read the English language. So I'm going to load from left to right. Usually we start with the DNA ladder. So we'll pretend this is the DNA ladder. There are multiple ways that people like to hold the pipettes. It's all up to you. Some people like to guide the tip of the pipette in using a finger. Some people like to brace their wrist if you have more shaky hands. Some people like to stand above the gel, and some people like to approach it from the side. So I'm going to go into the gel now. I'm going to guide that pipette tip. And my tip is barely in the well. Now, if I press all the way to the bottom of the well, it's going to pick the gel up and it can also tear the gel. So you just want to get to the very edge of it. Now that I'm in a well, I'm going to slowly depress my thumb. So I'm going to slowly depress that plunger. And as you see, the dye is going into the well. Now, what's going to happen if I release my thumb before I pull out the tip of the micropipette? If you said I'm going to suck all of the DNA back up into the tip, then you're correct. So you always want to make sure that you leave your thumb secure before you release it. So now I can release my thumb. I have a nice little loaded gel right there. And then I would go and load the rest of my samples for the lab. Now, the best part is ejecting your tip. And so that's what this second white button right here is for. When you press it, it's going to release the tip of the pipetting. So I'm going to click my tip, bam, releases into my little waste receptacle. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how to pipette in a nutshell. So I hope that was helpful for everybody. This is the Queen Nerdling, signing off.